Hey, welcome to the Explainer. So what if you could actually get paid while you're betting against a stock? Sounds pretty good, right? Well, today we're going to break down something called the poor man's covered put. It's this really clever strategy that lets you be bearish and generate income, all without needing the huge amount of cash you'd normally need to short a stock. Let's get into it.
All right, here's the plan. We're going to start by looking at its more famous cousin, the bullish version. Then we'll flip the whole thing on its head and introduce the bearish counterpart, the PMCP. After that, we'll really dig into how the trade is built, why it's so great with your capital, and of course, we gotta talk about the risks. Sound good? Let's go!
Okay, so first things first. To really get what the poor man's covered put is all about, you kind of have to understand where it came from. And its origin story starts with its super popular, bullish relative, the poor man's covered call. You'll often hear it called the PMCC.
So what in the world is a PMCC? Well, think of it like this. It's a way to fake a traditional covered call, but on a budget. Instead of forking over the cash to buy 100 shares of a stock, you buy a long-term call option, one that's already making money, what traders call deep in the money. We're often talking about a leaps option here. That leaps basically acts as your stand-in for the real stock. Then, and this is the key part, you start selling shorter-term calls against it to bring in some cash.
But why bother with all that? Why not just buy the stock? Well, it all boils down to one thing: money. Your capital. Look at this example. A normal covered call on a $100 stock. You're tying up almost 10 grand just to buy the shares. But with the PMCC, your total cost is just over 3,000 bucks. You're getting almost the same position for about a third of the price. I mean, that's a huge, huge difference. Okay, so the PMCC is awesome, right? It's a fantastic tool if you think a stock is going up or even just sideways. You get income, you get that upside exposure, and you do it with way less capital. But what happens when you look at a stock and think, oh man, this thing is going down? And that's the million-dollar question, right? That's the whole reason we're here today. How do you take that same awesome, capital-efficient, income-generating idea and apply it to a stock you're bearish on? Well, the answer, my friends, is the poor man's covered put, the PMCP. It is the perfect bearish twin to the strategy we just looked at. You're basically just swapping out all the calls for puts. And this slide just lays it out perfectly. You can really see how they're mirror images of each other. With the bullish PMCC, you're buying a long-term call, selling short-term calls. For the bearish PMCP, you just flip the script entirely. You buy a long-term put, and you sell short-term puts. It's that simple. It's the exact same logic, just pointed in the opposite direction for a down market. All right, so let's pop the hood on this thing and see how it's actually built. We'll break the trade down into its two main parts. Okay. So setting this up is actually a pretty simple two-step deal. Step 1, you create your main bearish position. But instead of the hassle of shorting 100 shares, you buy a long-term deep-in-the-money put option. That's your replacement for the short stock. Then comes step 2, which is where you start making money. You just repeatedly sell shorter-term out-of-the-money puts against that long one to collect cash, the premium. So think of the two parts of this trade as having very different jobs. That long leaps put, that's your engine. It's what gives you the bearish power. It's basically your synthetic short stock. And you want a high delta on it, above 0.75, so that when the stock drops $1, your options value goes up by almost $1. Then you have the short put. That's your fuel pump. It's constantly dripping premium into your account, lowering your total cost for being in the trade in the first place. I know. This might sound a little complicated. You might be thinking, why do all this? Why not just, short the stock if I think it's going down? And that's a fair question. The answer, though, comes back to that one killer concept: capital efficiency. And this right here is the heart of the matter. This is why you do it. To short 100 shares of a $150 stock, you'd need, at least $15,000 tied up in margin, and your risk is technically unlimited. The stock could go to the moon and you'd be wiped out. But with a PMCP, your entire risk is just what you paid to get into the trade, the net debit. So maybe $4,000. And here's the kicker. That is the most you can possibly lose. Period. It's a game changer for both your wallet and your peace of mind.
Trader Christopher Uhl put it really bluntly when he was talking about this kind of capital efficiency. Now, he was talking about a slightly different strategy, but the principle is identical. He said, and I quote, "I'm going to spend 5% of what you're spending, and I'm going to have pretty much the same outcome." This is dumb. This is super dumb. And what he's getting at is, why would you ever tie up a mountain of cash when you don't have to? The PMCP is all about avoiding that, about being smart with your money.
So let's just recap the big wins here. First, you get paid. You get that recurring income from selling the puts.
Second, you get what you came for, the bearish exposure to profit if the stock drops. Third, and this is huge, your risk is defined. You know your max loss from day one. And finally, the big kahuna. You do it all with way less capital than shorting. I mean, that's a pretty powerful mix.
Okay, but let's be real for a second. There's no such thing as a free lunch, especially in trading. This isn't some set-it-and-forget-it magic trick. The PMCP needs you to pay attention. It needs active management, and you absolutely have to go in with your eyes wide open about the risks. So, time for a little reality check.
All right, what can go wrong? Well, number one, the most obvious one, you're just playing wrong. If the stock goes up instead of down, that long put you bought is going to lose value and fast. Then there's volatility risk. If the overall market fear, the implied volatility suddenly drops, the value of your expensive long-term option can take a hit. Next up, assignment risk. Your short put could get exercised, meaning you're suddenly on the hook to buy 100 shares of a stock you thought was going down. Not fun. And lastly, a sneaky one, transaction costs. Remember, you're trading two options, not one. So those little bid-ask spreads can start to add up and nibble away at your profits.
But let's put all those risks in perspective for a moment. Yeah, there are risks, but compare it to shorting stock. When you short a stock, your potential losses, and I'm not exaggerating, unlimited. The stock can just keep going up forever. With the poor man's covered put, your risk is locked in and defined the second you place the trade. It's capped. That's it. From a pure risk management view, that's a night and day difference.
So what's the bottom line here? The poor man's covered put is a seriously powerful tool. It's a capital-efficient way for a trader to not just be bearish, but to actively generate income from that bearish view. It's not for someone who just wants to place a simple bet and walk away. No, this strategy needs you to stay on top of it. It demands active management. And really, that leads to a bigger question you should ask yourself. Is your view on the market worth more than just a simple directional guess? Because at the end of the day, picking the right strategy isn't just about up or down. It's about how you use your capital, how you handle risk, and how you can get paid for being right over time. Thanks for hanging out with us on The Explainer. We'll see you on the next one.